2 weeks before our wedding, my fiancée vanished only to be seen partying with her ex, smiling like nothing mattered. I didn't confront her, I made a quiet plan instead, and what happened next was her nightmare. I'm Matt, I'm 34, been working in architectural restoration for almost a decade. People say I'm steady, honest, dependable, and maybe too forgiving sometimes. My fiancée Olivia was 31, bright, wild, ambitious, and always a little impulsive, but I loved her for that. Or maybe I loved the version of her that I made up in my head. The one who laughed at my dumb jokes and curled up beside me at night whispering that she couldn't wait to grow old with me. We were supposed to get married in mid-September. I remember because we picked the date based on the time of year her grandmother's favorite garden bloomed, a detail she'd shared with me once while we were lying on the floor with our legs up the wall eating cereal out of the box like college kids. It felt perfect back then, like the kind of story we'd tell our future kids. But now, thinking back, I realize how many signs I chose not to see, like how she got distant whenever her ex Greg came up in conversation, Greg who she said was a mess. Emotionally immature, drank too much and never held a job for long. She called him a phase once, said she didn't even know who that version of herself was anymore, and I believed her, because why wouldn't I? We were engaged, planning centerpieces and tasting cakes and arguing over whether we needed a live band or just a good DJ, but then, 2 weeks before the wedding, she disappeared. Not a full-on missing person case or anything, she just stopped answering my calls, said she was going to her cousin's bachelorette weekend in New Orleans and needed some girl time to decompress before the big day. I was cool with that. I trusted her. I even sent her off with one of those cute little hangover kits and a bottle of elderflower gin she liked. She texted the first night saying everything was great. They were at some rooftop bar drinking frozen cocktails and dancing under string lights, but then nothing after that. No calls returned, no replies to my messages, just radio silence. 4 whole days. I started to panic, not full-blown panic at first, more like pacing the apartment with my phone in hand, refreshing Instagram, checking if she'd liked anything or if her friends had posted. Eventually I called her mom, who said she hadn't heard from her either but that Olivia probably just needed space. That was her way. But that didn't sit right with me, so I called her maid of honor, Hannah, and after 3 attempts and 1 awkward voicemail she finally texted me back saying, "Olivia's fine, Matt. She's just figuring some things out, don't blow up her phone." Okay, figuring what out? We had 14 days until we were supposed to walk down the aisle. I took a personal day from work and drove to her mom's place in western Massachusetts thinking maybe she'd gone there instead. I found the house locked up tight and her mom gave me this weird tight-lipped smile like she was holding in a secret she didn't want to carry. That night I couldn't sleep, I kept hearing her laugh in my head and it started to feel like a mockery, like I'd imagined our whole relationship, and then it happened. A buddy of mine from college sent me a screenshot, no words, just the image, a photo of Olivia in Miami, not New Orleans like she said, and not with her cousin or her girlfriends, but with Greg, her ex, holding hands, smiling with sunglasses on and a champagne flute in her other hand, and the caption on someone else's story said something like "Love always finds a way." My heart dropped straight into my stomach and I felt cold all over. I didn't cry, not then. I just stared at the photo for a long time like if I looked hard enough I could find some glitch that proved it was fake. But it wasn't fake. I kept zooming in like a psycho. There was no way to explain it away, no girl's trip, no cousin, just lies. And while everyone else would have called her out or blasted her online or maybe cancelled the venue in a rage, I did something else. I turned off my phone, sat in the dark with a pen and paper, and I made a plan, not to scream, not to fight, but to end things on my terms, quiet and clean, and make sure that the next photo she saw of me was something she'd never forget. I didn't tell anyone right away, not my sister Lena who always said Olivia was too slippery with her words, not my best friend Drew who would have driven to Miami himself just to spit on Greg's car. I kept it all to myself because rage wasn't what I felt, not exactly, it was something colder, sharper, like my heart had frozen into glass and every time I breathed it cracked a little more. So I stayed quiet, I waited, and I moved. See, Olivia and I had opened a joint account a few months ago, just for wedding expenses, she said, and I was the one managing most of it because she said budgeting made her anxious. We had about 22 grand sitting there from our family's contributions and our own savings. She never touched it. She said she didn't even remember the login. Well, I did. And that night I transferred every last cent into a secure holding account under my name only. I had the receipts, the text messages, even voice notes where she said stuff like, "Babe, I don't even want a deal with the money stress, just handle it please." So legally, I was safe. After that, I canceled the catering, the tent rental, the florist, the DJ, all of it. Every vendor we had was notified and refunded what they could. I even called the hotel where her parents had booked 20 rooms for their relatives and told them there'd been a family emergency. I asked for a full refund under my name since I'd been the one who made the block reservation, and then, I packed her things. I took every blouse, sandal, lipstick, and stray bobby pin she ever left in my place and boxed it all up, not messily, but with the same methodical care I used on restoration projects, labeled and neat. Then I sent it by courier to her mother's address, with a small note on top that said, "I wish you'd trusted me enough to tell me the truth." The next part, that was the hardest. I had to face people, and lie through my teeth with a calm face while my insides felt like soup. I told my parents that the wedding was postponed because Olivia needed time. I told our mutual friends that her cousin's trip got intense and she needed a break from the pressure, and everyone nodded, because Olivia was always a bit of a flight risk, charming and wild but never fully grounded, and most of them figured she'd come running back like she always did, except this time, I wouldn't be there. Now here's where it got really interesting. I logged into our shared Dropbox, the one where we stored wedding stuff, and found dozens of design ideas, Pinterest screenshots, even a half-written letter she'd saved to her mom saying how excited she was to be with someone stable for once, how I made her feel safe, and I almost lost it reading that, because if I made her feel safe, why did she run back to chaos? But I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of knowing she'd wreck me. Instead, I made a new folder, titled it Olivia's Real Wedding, and uploaded the Miami photo with Greg, added the date and location metadata, and shared it with myself for records, not to spread or shame her, just to keep the truth safe in case anyone ever questioned me. 2 days later, I got an email from her. Finally, it said, "Hey, sorry I've been out of touch, I just needed space to clear my head. I still want us to talk, okay, let's figure this out." I didn't reply, not right away. Instead, I logged into our wedding website, removed her bio, removed the countdown, and replaced the homepage with a single message: "Thank you all for your love and support. The wedding has been cancelled due to personal reasons. Please contact Matt directly for any questions." She must have seen it because not long after that she called me 17 times in a row. I didn't answer, but I texted her one thing: "The truth always comes back around, Liv. Hope you enjoyed Miami." That's when she lost it. She called me names, accused me of snooping, said I had no right to stalk her like that, and I said nothing. I didn't feed the flames, and that made her angrier. See, Olivia was used to me being the fixer, the smoother, the one who calmed her storms, but I'd finally learned that some storms aren't meant to be calmed, they're meant to be walked away from, and as I watched the wedding I'd poured my heart into dissolve piece by piece. I didn't feel broken, I felt free, and yet, I wasn't done, not yet, because there was still one thing left she didn't know I had: the lease. The apartment we were supposed to move into together right after the honeymoon. It was under my name only. She didn't even know where the spare key was, and she'd mailed some of her documents there ahead of time. I called the landlord, explained the change in plans, and he said we could reassign it if I found a new tenant, which I did. Within days, a single mom with 2 kids and a small dog. Her name was Clara, and she cried when I handed her the key, said she'd been waiting for a place like this for months, and I smiled because Olivia had always complained about kids and dogs being messy, and now the place she dreamed of decorating with mid-century art would be filled with toys and barking in real life, and I walked away from it all without looking back. But Olivia didn't walk away so easily. No, she came back home a week later, showed up outside my building with a suitcase and puffy eyes, said she made a mistake, said Greg wasn't who she thought he was, that it was all a blur and she didn't know why she did what she did, and I stood there listening, with my hands in my pockets, not angry, not smug, just done. And I said, "Olivia, I don't think you ever loved me. I think you loved the idea of someone loving you completely." And she started crying harder, and for a second I wanted to hug her, but I didn't. I just nodded and walked back inside, and as the door clicked shut behind me I realized something I hadn't felt in weeks: peace. The next few days were strange, like standing in the quiet after a tornado. Everything looks normal, but you know deep down that something shifted forever. Olivia kept trying to reach out, first with texts, then voicemails, then long emails with subject lines like "I still believe in us" and "Please talk to me, Matt," and I didn't reply to any of it, because what was left to say? She made her choice the second she lied about the trip and slid back into Greg's arms like I never existed. The worst part wasn't even the cheating, it was the cowardice, the silence, the ghosting, like I was some phase she outgrew. But I wasn't angry anymore, not the burning hot kind of angry anyway. It was more like this icy calm that let me think clearer than I had in years. And that's when I realized I wasn't finished yet, not out of spite or revenge but because I knew who Olivia really was now and I knew what she was capable of. and I needed to make sure I was truly done. See, Olivia had always been image obsessed. She curated her life like a Pinterest board, every brunch, every outfit, every fake deep caption about growth and healing and boss energy, and our wedding was supposed to be her crown jewel, the post that made everyone jealous. She even made me take engagement photos with her in matching linen outfits on a damn sailboat, and now that it was off, she had to face the embarrassment, and I knew she wouldn't handle that well. Sure enough, within a week, one of her friends reached out to me on Instagram, someone named Camila who I barely knew, and she said, "Hey Matt, just so you know, Liv's telling people you cheated on her and that's why the wedding was cancelled, said you hooked up with your coworker and took off with the money," and I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly Olivia. She couldn't bear to be the villain in her own story, even though the receipts were all stacked in my corner. So I did something she never expected. I posted a photo, just one. A picture of the closed ring box sitting on the counter next to a plane ticket stub and a printed screenshot of the Miami photo, no caption, just that, and within hours my inbox exploded. Her family messaged me, her friends messaged me, even a few people from our venue team sent me private notes saying how sorry they were. But the best part, the absolutely perfect cherry on top, was when Greg himself messaged me. Yeah, Greg, the ex. He sent this long awkward apology that started with, "Hey man, I didn't know she was still engaged when she came down here. She said you guys were on a break and I believed her. I had no idea you two were still planning a wedding, and I swear I wouldn't have gone near her if I knew." And I just stared at the screen for a long time, thinking about how I once spent an entire Sunday painting her bathroom the exact shade of mint she wanted while she flipped through a catalog of wedding dresses she never intended to wear. And now here was Greg, of all people, sounding more remorseful than Olivia ever did. So I replied, I said, "Thanks for telling me, don't worry, I'm moving on," and that was the truth. It wasn't quick and it wasn't painless, but it was happening, piece by piece, day by day, and yet, Olivia wasn't done, because the part that made this her nightmare hadn't even started yet. See, remember that wedding website we built? The one with all the RSVP links and registry info? Well, I never deleted it, I just stripped it down and redirected the link to a page titled "Things I Wish I'd Known Before Proposing," and on that page I wrote our story, no names, no photos, just a timeline of red flags I ignored and how I learned from it. It wasn't spiteful, it wasn't even angry, it was honest, brutally so, and I posted it under a pseudonym on a popular wedding forum, not to go viral, just to let it out, and then it did go viral, not overnight but slowly, post by post, comment by comment. People shared it, not because of the drama but because of the quiet way it unfolded, the way I didn't explode but dismantled the fantasy brick by brick. And then one morning I woke up to a message from a podcaster who ran a show called Breakups and Breakthroughs asking if I'd be willing to anonymously share my story on air. And for the first time in months, I felt something new, not pain, not bitterness, but a strange kind of power. So I said yes. We recorded the episode. I told the story just like it happened, no embellishment, just raw truth, and when it aired, it blew up. Women and men alike messaged the show saying they'd been through similar betrayals, that hearing someone handle it with calm and class gave them strength, and I felt proud, not because I got attention but because I didn't let her destroy me. Olivia heard it too, I know she did, because a week after it dropped she showed up at my office, unannounced, mascara running down her cheeks, saying she was sorry, that she messed up everything good in her life, that Greg was using her, that she had nowhere to go, and she just wanted a chance to talk, to make things right. And I looked at her, really looked, and I saw a stranger, not the woman I once wanted to marry, but someone who'd used love like a ladder, climbing until she found a shinier view. I told her I wished her peace, I told her I hoped she figured herself out, but I wasn't her safety net anymore, I wasn't her backup plan, and I asked her to leave, and when she did, that's when her nightmare really began, not because I cursed her or destroyed her reputation, but because she had to face something scarier than revenge, silence. She couldn't paint herself as the victim, couldn't control the narrative anymore, and the only story left was the one where she was just a girl who threw away something real for a flash of chaos, and the world moved on without her. I thought that would be it, I really did. I thought once she walked away from my office in those heels she always said were too tight but made her legs look amazing, it would be the end of her part in my story. But grief has a weird way of hanging around even after the storm has passed. It lingers in the songs that come on shuffle when you're not ready, in the smells of coffee in a mug you forgot was hers, in the rhythm of your life where her voice used to be, and I felt it, all of it, the aftermath, the space she left behind, not because I missed her, but because I missed who I thought she was. I missed the life I imagined, the mornings and lazy Sundays and shared dreams that weren't ever really ours to begin with. And that kind of morning, it's quieter, harder to explain, but it doesn't go away just because the person does. So I started doing things I hadn't done in years. I went hiking alone. I picked up my old guitar again. I even signed up for a weekend woodworking class in this little town 2 hours away, and I met people who didn't know me as the guy who almost got married, just Matt, the quiet dude who sanded his boards too much and brought good coffee. I started smiling again, laughing even, not the polite kind but the real kind, the kind that comes from your gut and makes your eyes wrinkle, and slowly, piece by piece, I came back to life. I didn't post about it, didn't update anyone, I just lived. And it was enough. But of course, peace doesn't come without some ghosts trying to sneak back in. Olivia tried one more time, this time through her mom, who emailed me a long letter about how Olivia was seeing a therapist, how she was trying to make amends, how she'd fallen into old patterns but truly believed I was the one person who ever really saw her, and I read it, every word, and then I deleted it, not out of cruelty but because I'd already said my goodbye, I'd already done the work, and I wasn't going to go backward, not even for closure. And then something strange happened, something I didn't expect. The podcast episode, the one where I told our story, it was picked up by a popular YouTube channel that animated stories and turned real-life confessions into these stylized visual tales. They reached out to ask for permission to adapt mine, and I said yes, as long as they changed the names and details, which they did, and a month later, there it was, our story, not as it happened exactly but close enough, playing out in soft colors and heavy voiceover on a screen for 500,000 people to see, and the comments, they poured in, not about me, not really, but about the lesson, the calm, the way sometimes the best revenge is to build a life so full that the person who hurt you no longer fits in it. And I can't lie, it felt good, not because people knew what happened, but because I finally let it go. And then one day, I got a letter, not an email, not a text, a real letter, in an envelope with shaky handwriting and a return address I didn't recognize. It was from Greg. Yeah, again, apparently he and Olivia imploded not long after her visit to my office. She'd lied to him too, said she wasn't engaged, said I was abusive, said all kinds of things that eventually caught up with her. And when he found the video version of our story online, he said it all clicked. He apologized again, more detailed this time, said he wasn't asking for forgiveness, just wanted to acknowledge the mess he contributed to, and weirdly, I believed him, not because I trusted him, but because by then, I didn't care anymore. The anger was gone, the hurt had melted into understanding, not of her, but of myself, of what I'd accepted, what I'd ignored, what I deserved, and I took the letter and tucked it in a box with a few other things I kept, not out of nostalgia, but as a reminder of how far I'd come. And here's the twist, the real twist. Not long after all that, I met someone, not in some cheesy rom-com way, not in a meet-cute over dropped groceries or tangled leashes at a dog park, just a woman at the woodworking class. Her name was Elise, 33, soft-spoken, funny in a quiet way, eyes that looked like they'd seen hard things but still found light. We started talking, slowly, carefully, and there were no grand declarations, no whirlwind, just two people showing up for each other, one step at a time. And she never asked about Olivia, not directly, but I told her, eventually, and she didn't pity me or act impressed. She just nodded and said, sounds like you finally chose you, and that stuck with me, because she was right, I did, for the first time in a long time, and I wasn't scared anymore, not of heartbreak, not of being alone, not of the silence, because silence isn't empty, it's where healing grows, where clarity lives, and that, more than anything, was Olivia's nightmare. Not that I ruined her life, but that I didn't need her to be happy, that I didn't need to scream, or beg, or destroy her reputation. That I just kept living, building, smiling, while she sat in the ruins of what could have been, waiting for someone to come clean up the mess she made. But this time, no one did, and the story didn't end with some grand apology or reunion or second chance. It ended with a man who found peace, and a woman who lost everything, not because someone took it from her, but because she never knew how to hold it in the first place. It was about 6 months later when I finally felt it, that shift, the one people talk about but no one can really describe. It doesn't hit like a lightning bolt or scream through your veins like anger does. It's soft, subtle, like waking up one morning and realizing the heaviness you've carried for so long just isn't there anymore. I was standing in the kitchen of my new place, a smaller one-bedroom across the river from where Olivia and I had planned to live, the kind of place with creaky floors and old tiles that never quite match but somehow feel like home. Elise was there too, barefoot and laughing because I couldn't open a jar of sun-dried tomatoes. and she teased me like I was some big strong man brought to his knees by a stubborn lid, and I laughed too, the real kind, the kind that makes your chest shake, and that's when I knew I'd healed, not just from Olivia, but from the story I'd written with her, the one I thought was my forever, and it didn't end with rage or revenge or even satisfaction, it just ended, and something new began, something slower, quieter, more real, and yet, like clockwork, Olivia wasn't done. See, what she never realized, what she never imagined, was that I'd kept one more thing, one last thread, not as a weapon, not as leverage, just in case I ever needed to protect myself. Her messages, all of them, the ones from before the wedding, the ones from Miami, the voicemails, the screenshots of the photos she tried to delete, I'd saved them all, encrypted and backed up, because I knew her pattern. She didn't just ruin relationships, she rewrote them, always painting herself as the girl who was wronged, misunderstood, mistreated, and I wasn't going to let her turn me into another villain in her fairy tale. And it was a good thing too, because one afternoon I got a call from a mutual friend I hadn't heard from in ages, someone who used to work with Olivia at a local marketing firm, and he said, "Hey Matt, this might sound weird, but I thought you should know, Olivia's been telling people at her new job that you stole from her, that you canceled the wedding and ran off with her half of the money." And man, my jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might crack, not because I was afraid, but because I was tired of her still trying to rewrite the truth when I'd already walked away. So I did one last thing. I sent a quiet little package to her office, certified mail, addressed only to her, and inside was a printed folder, full of timelines, receipts, call logs, and one short letter at the top that said, "This is the last time I will engage, these are the facts, this is the truth, and if you continue to spread lies, I will pursue legal protection. I hope for your sake and mine, this ends here." And I signed it with my full name, nothing dramatic, nothing cruel, just facts, plain and simple. I never heard from her again, not a call, not a text, not even a whisper through the grapevine. She disappeared in the same silence she once used to hurt me, only this time, I wasn't left broken on the floor. I was standing taller than ever, with someone beside me who knew the whole story and stayed anyway. And yeah, I still think about it sometimes, about the wedding we never had, about the life we almost built, and for a second there's a sting, like an old scar catching in the cold. But then I look around at what I have now, the peace, the quiet mornings, the shared laughter, the love that doesn't demand a performance, and I know I got the better ending, not because I crushed her or exposed her or made her life hell, but because I found mine, my rhythm, my balance, my joy. And Olivia, well, she'll always be the girl who ghosted her own future for a party that didn't last, the one who ran from love into chaos and never found her way back. And maybe she'll tell that story differently, maybe she already has, but I don't need to correct her anymore, because the people who matter, they know, and the truth, it always finds a way out, no matter how deep someone tries to bury it. And now, every time I walk into a room with Elise or pick up my guitar or take a deep breath in my quiet little home, I feel something Olivia never gave me, never could have. I feel whole, I feel free, and that, more than anything, is the ending I never saw coming but always deserved. Thanks for watching. If you liked the story, hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more crazy twists. See you in the next one.